Okay, so in this lesson we're going to look at setting up a FK system for our skeleton to be able to drive the arm. So let's go in, and I'm going to turn the visibility off on my IK system, turn it on the bind rig, and I'm going to duplicate this. And on this one, I am going to do a modify and I'm going to search and replace names, and I'm going to basically do the same thing, except I'm going to do FK that I did in the previous lesson and apply. That will set that up for all the joints, and just like last time I want to make sure that I remove the 1 here, and I'm going to turn the visibility off on my bind joints. So that way we're only looking at the FK. So here we have a setup where basically we're just going to need to do rotations. Let's hide our IK so they don't get in the way either. There we go. So with the rotations that we're going to do, we're basically going to need to rotate the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist for the hand. And those are going to be our main control points. We do want these sections here in the middle to orient proportionally to these in the X rotation. And if we do add a stretch controller, when we add the stretch, it will also stretch with it. So we're going to have to do a similar setup as we did before. So I'm going to take the elbow, Shift P, and the wrist, Shift P. And that's going to unparent the elbow and the wrist from the twist joints, because we don't want it to be affected there. And I am going to parent them to the main joints that they should be affecting. So now if I rotate this joint, we'll get that action here. This joint here will get the whole arm action, and this joint here. So it looks similar, but it's going to allow us to do some stretching here if we needed it. So let's look at setting that up. And the constraints are going to be really similar to what we did in the FK system. Or not the FK system, but the IK system. So going to go here, constraint point, .25 and .75. And repeat that here. 0.5 on both. Then repeat that here. 0.75 and 0.25. here we're going to do 0.25 and 0.75. Oops. Need to do the constraint first. Here, they're both going to be at 0.5, and then last one, this is going to be 0.75 and 0.25. There we go. So we have that stretching component all set up. Now we just need to do the orient constraint. So it's going to be here, constraint orient, and oops, not on that. I just want to do the FK just so that it's easier to access all of the joints. So we have this joint chain here and the orient constraints that I want to work with. And this is going to be at 0.25 and 0.75. Then orient constraint. And make sure that the orient constraint, you're only doing the x-axis. I still have it preset from the last lesson, so it works that way, but if you did anything in between, you might need to make sure that it is set up correctly, and I'll do that in the next one to show you as an example. So I'm going to select the elbow, the wrist, and that joint, constraint, orient option box, and just make sure that on here we have maintain offset turned off and that we have X checked. So on this one we're going to do 0.75 and 0.25. And I'm going to repeat this action here. Find that orient constraint. This is going to be 0.25, 0.75. Repeat that, and go. It's going to be 0.5 across both. Last time. And this is going to be 0.75 and 0.25. There we go. So everything should be working correctly. We stretch, works, and we rotate, we get those gradual rotations between each joint. Cool, perfect. And we rotate this, that's fine, cool. I'm going to collapse all this and look at everything. Looks correct in our hierarchy here, so I am going to end it here. In the next lessons we'll look at setting up some controls to be able to control our systems that we created here, our animation systems. So we'll see you in the next lesson.